Welcome to the Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs podcast, a place for podcasters to learn what's actually working in the world of podcasting and how to use their podcast to generate consistent leads in their business. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm so excited you're here. So in last week's episode, I shared what to do before you start monetizing your podcast. So this week, we're actually going to dive into the ways that you can monetize your podcast. And there's 5 different ways, at least that I'm mentioning in this episode, to just round out this little mini monetization series that I've done on the podcast for the past couple weeks. I'd love to know on Instagram. My handle is Jenny Sennison. If you enjoyed this little mini series and would like more little series like this in the podcast in the future, I'm always open for suggestions. So if you enjoyed this series and would like me to do more like this, then let me know on Instagram. Just shoot me a DM and let me know what other kind of ideas about podcasting for a mini series that you'd be interested in, and I will try and make it happen. And some of you may have noticed that we did get some brand new cover art for the show. I have had the pink and gray for the Savvy Podcast brand since its inception in 2018. But I wanted to switch things up a bit. So I decided to change the colors to my green and navy colors, which are the same as my personal brand colors. And then I also added a photo of myself because I wanted to just practice what I preach to my clients when it comes to cover art. And I hadn't been doing that this whole time. So I finally decided to add a photo of myself. I would love to get more branded photos done in the future and, switch out that photo, but I was just working with what I had. So before we dive in, I did want to mention my free masterclass, How to Make Money from Your Podcast Without Relying on Ad Sponsorships. Because if you've been following me for a while, you know ad sponsorships are not the only way to monetize your podcast. And you'll learn that even further in this episode. So if you want to sign up for the free class, you can head to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/free and grab your seat today. And let's get back into the episode. So first up, we have affiliate marketing. So affiliate marketing is a great way to get your feet wet with monetization with your podcast, because there's just really no pressure to make sales here since you're not a binding agreement with the company, but it's great if you're able to make those sales and make a little money from the products that you endorse to your listeners. So it's just a good way to kind of dive in and see what converts and what doesn't. And like I said, there's no pressure because you don't have like a contract or anything. So you can kind of just experiment there. You can also be an affiliate for everyday products that you use and love. But in this case, I think the best way to be an affiliate is to share other people's products and services in the online space, like digital courses, ebooks, and even their services in some cases. I feel like that converts better. And if you're an entrepreneur, if you're, a blogger or, a hobby podcaster, then, talking about everyday products and linking them might be a better fit for you. But in terms of entrepreneurs, since this is a podcast for entrepreneurs, that is my recommendation. So affiliates for like everyday products usually pay out between like 2 to 15% per sale, while affiliates for digital products like courses and whatnot usually pay out between 20 and 50% per sale, sometimes maybe even higher. So if you have an audience of buyers and you can vouch for these specific products or services, like you've taken them before, or you know that the person who is the creator of the course is really, really good at what they do, then this could be a really great way to start generating some income from your podcast, because you obviously don't want to promote things that you can't vouch for, because if people take it and they don't like it, then you have like some kind of personal responsibility there. So just make sure that it's something you can fully stand behind before sharing it with your people. Next up, we have ad sponsorships. So, as we all know, ad sponsorships are definitely not my favorite way to monetize. I've mentioned it several times on the podcast, as it's not something you can typically make a ton of money from. But in an episode about podcast monetization, I obviously had to mention it. So, ad sponsorships typically don't pay too much, think around $15 to $25 per episode. In most cases, there's definitely some outliers, but in most cases that's pretty much the average pay unless you have high downloads and or I'm saying and or because you could have a super niche audience with not high downloads or high downloads or a super niche audience. So if you expect to make your full-time income with ad sponsorships on your podcast, it's definitely possible in some cases, but it's not as common as you may think. Like most people that have a podcast don't make all their money from ad sponsorships unless it's like those celebrity podcasters. So people who do really well with ad sponsorships are those like Crime Junkie and Joe Rogan, etc. Those like celebrity podcasts that have really big downloads to show the sponsors, and sponsors are likely already showing up in their inbox knowing that and wanting to work with them. They don't really have to like put themselves out there because it's already pretty much there for them to take. Um, so that's just something to keep in mind when it comes to ad sponsorships. Next up, we have selling your own products and services. So this is my all-time favorite way to monetize, as I'm sure you guys already know, which I've talked about a million times, but this allows you to make more profit in your business instead of making money for other companies like the when you do ad sponsorships or affiliates and only getting paid a small fraction of what you deserve. So it allows you to just make money off of your offerings, whether that's your courses, your services, whatever that may be. It just allows you to make money for your own stuff. And once people binge your free content and they fall in love with that and they really just become a raving fan of yours, then they're more likely to purchase from you in the future. So it's really important to tell them how that they can work with you in a paid capacity. It doesn't have to be spammy. Just mention it because if you don't tell people how they can work with you, they don't know. Most people, they're not going to do crazy digging to find out how to work with you. I mean, there are some cases where that's a thing, but not in most cases. So you need to tell people how they can work with you. Next up, we have merch. So, this is similar to selling your own products and services, but when I say merch, I more so mean merch that goes along with your show. So, think apparel, mugs, and other accessories that are specifically branded to your show or, something about your show. And this is not something that I have at this time, but I do have a client with merch that she successfully sells on her show. So, if you do have like a show that has things that you could make into merch. That is a fun idea. I know I have like a podcast idea. I don't know if I'll ever do it, but it's about, being millennials. So talking about all the different millennial things that we go through, all the things we grew up with, all that stuff. So that would be like fun to have merch for because it's more of a lifestyle brand versus like a business brand like my podcast is. But it's just something to keep in mind if that is something that you think would resonate well with your audience. And as an entrepreneur, I believe that is important to have several streams of income. So if you have the bandwidth to create and sell merch that goes along with your show and people seem to be interested in it, like I would definitely recommend surveying them before you create it and seeing if there's even a market for it with your audience. Then this could be a really fun avenue to explore. So definitely not something to write off. And then lastly, we have something like Patreon. So, Patreon, you have different membership tiers, and it's just another way to make money from your show. With this method, you will have to create additional content each month for your subscribers who upgrade to become a paid subscriber. So, that is something to keep in mind. A good example of this is Crime Junkies, like I think it's called their fan club. So, they have 3 different Patreon tiers where you can get access to bonus episodes, early access to their merch and event tickets when they drop, Ask Me Anythings with the hosts, and different audio extras on their $5 a month tier. And then they have, I think, a $10 a month tier and then a third higher tier, maybe 25. And then these 2 other tiers build upon the first one with even more bonuses. So I think like the second tier gets another shorter episode as well. And then they just kind of build upon each other. So if you already have a loyal audience and you can commit to putting out more content for your Patreon supporters each month, then this might be a great option for you as well. It's not something I've ever done, and none of my clients have a Patreon at this time, but it's definitely popular among um, some podcasters like the Creme Junkie Girls. So, yeah. Um, that is pretty much it, but I definitely want to talk more about monetizing in the Clubhouse happy hour that I plan on doing every single Wednesday. So, if you want to talk more about monetizing your podcast or just podcasting in general, make sure to join me for Savvy Podcasting Happy Hour. It's every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Central, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on the Clubhouse app. And if you guys want to join me for that, make sure to head on over to Clubhouse and follow me at Jenny Sunnison, and then turn on the notifications so that you get notified when I go live. And then we can chat there every single Wednesday about the episode and, other things about podcasting. And I cannot wait to see you there. If you're still looking and needing a Clubhouse invite, make sure to DM me on Instagram and I'll get you an invite so you can join in on all the fun. Right now, it is only for iPhones. So keep that in mind. But if you need an invite, I have some. So definitely DM me on Instagram at Jenny Sonnison and we'll get you all hooked up and on Clubhouse. So that is it for today's episode. If you want to check out the show notes for the episode, you can find them at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com. And I will see you in the next episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher, and leave a review. You can find us at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com and on Facebook at Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs and Instagram at Savvy Podcasting. Make sure to join our free Facebook community for podcasters by going to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/community and join in on the exclusive community just for Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs listeners. I'll see you there.